Peace, family, and welcome to another Drake the Maniac podcast. I'm Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Draketomaniac in charge. And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. Everyone has faith. Even atheists have faith, though they may not recognize it as such. I've been making the argument for some time now that faith in this system, or anything this system can do for us as a people, is useless.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Draketomaniac podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
I go to great lengths to advise anyone who will listen that our people want so badly to believe this system can in some way work for us, or at the very, very least, that we can somehow force the system to do right by our people. That some of our people can experience freedom, liberty, and happiness instead of the non-stop oppression and terror with which we are so well acquainted. But I keep saying that it's not possible, and it will not happen. Not in the way we want it to, at least. Here's why I want our people to let go of the notion that we can get any level of satisfaction or justice from this system. I'm going to use a couple of events from the Bible, and whether you're a person of spiritual faith or an atheist, it doesn't matter, because the principle holds true. The Bible talks about when Jesus, Yahushua, was walking on the water. Peter said he wanted to go out there to him. After taking a few steps and then seeing the tempest around him and the fact that he was on the water, he started to sink. Peter did. The scripture says, "And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come out to thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come out of the ship, and he walked on the water to go to Jesus, Yahushua, but when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus, Yahushua, stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" Some take that to mean that Yahushua was asking the question in terms of Peter having a lack of faith. However, I don't think that's what it meant, especially in light of the scripture that says, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. It would seem at first that these scriptures contradict each other, because one is saying you only need a tiny bit of faith, and the other seems to be saying to Peter that he started to sink because his faith was so weak. So which is it? Was Peter so lacking in faith that he didn't even have faith the size of a grain of mustard seed? It wasn't saying he had no faith. In asking, wherein did you doubt? I believe that Yahushua was recognizing that Peter did have faith. The question was asking where his faith was placed. It's obvious Peter started out with his faith in Yahushua, and then when he started paying attention to the reality of what was happening around him, likely due to the fact that he spent a lifetime living in a physical universe that was subject to very specific laws and rules, his faith shifted from the unfamiliar to the familiar, and he started to sink, according to his faith shifting to the laws to which he was now adhering, instead of a new set of laws, that of Yahushua, who defied the laws he had come to know. I think I've given this analogy before, but I feel it's worth repeating. Imagine it's winter time, and you're at a lake that you need to get to the other side of. You see the entire lake has a sheet of ice on top of it. If you have all the faith in the world that that ice will hold you up, but unbeknownst to you, the ice is only a quarter of an inch thick, what will happen if you step out onto that ice and you just have all the faith in the world? What will happen? Right, you'll break right through that ice. Now, same scenario, except the ice is 2 feet thick. And just to let you know, 1 foot of ice is thick enough to drive a car across. Okay? So instead of having all the faith in the world, you have very little faith. As a matter of fact, all you have is just enough faith to step out onto it. And I'm talking about the ice that's 2 feet thick. You have just enough faith to step out on it. What happens then? Right again, it'll hold you up. You're not going to break through that ice that's 2 feet thick just because your faith is small or weak. Because ultimately, your faith is the least of the equation. All you need is enough to step out onto it. The more important issue is where that faith is placed. All the faith in the world in the wrong thing will prove disastrous. A tiny bit of faith in the right place will benefit you. Personally, I have zero faith in this system or anything that even remotely pertains to or depends upon it. I do have faith, first in Yah, and second in the ability and genuine intelligence, intellect, creativity, and stamina of our people. But we are forever getting backhanded compliments from white people about what overcomers we are and how much we fight and persevere and all the other lip service they say that they love to give us while doing absolutely nothing to actually improve our situation, especially if it will be at the cost of their situation. Again, I have plenty of faith and hope, but none of it is in this system. None. My faith and hope is in Yah, of course, and also our people and what we can accomplish outside this system. 9/11 occurred on a Tuesday. Back then I was a Christian. I no longer consider myself a Christian. My belief system has changed, but I still have my faith and trust in Yah. That said, as many Christians did and do, I was at church every time the door was open, including Tuesday evening Bible study. That particular Tuesday on 9/11, I was aware of what had happened. How could anyone in America or the whole world not know? But I was not prepared for what I saw when I got to church. Typically, there was always a handful of the faithful few who would show up on Tuesday evening for Bible study. And it was a fair-sized church building, and I would always sit on the front pew, the very front. But this time, I got to the parking lot, and for the first time that I could ever remember, with the exception of conventions, I had trouble finding a place to park. When I did manage to get parked and make my way inside, finding my usual seat at the front was out of the question. As a matter of fact, it was almost standing room only, though I did find a seat at the very, very back against the wall. Now, the church I was attending at that time was a black church, and as I said before, it was a pretty fair size, not a mega church by any stretch, but it was definitely not a small church. That said, the most white people I ever saw in the congregation at the same time on a Sunday was 4, maybe 5 white people, and that was like seldom. This particular night, if memory serves, the white people there outnumbered the black people. The following Sunday, it was equally packed, and with that same ratio. Slowly, predictably, as the days, weeks, and months wore on, the white faces, and some of the new black faces, thinned out, and they thinned out, and they thinned out, until about 4 to 6 months later, everything was pretty much back to normal, or what we considered to be normal. So why did I go into all that? Every week I explain what's happening with the government, and especially the fact that for all the marching, protesting, demands, and threats our people make, we're totally leaving out of our thought process, seemingly, that the government has all but abandoned the average white person out there who is not a member of the 1 or 10%. And so logic dictates, at least to me, that there's nothing that we can say or do to affect any kind of change if the people to whom the system historically gave privilege are now doing just as much marching, protesting, demanding, and making threats, and the government is in no uncertain terms telling them they can go F themselves. In no uncertain terms. I mean, if you really start paying attention to what the government is doing, you will see that they just literally, they're doing absolutely nothing for the white people to whom they have given privilege. And so it is beyond me how we could even fix our minds to believe that there's anything that we can say or do that will motivate them to move on things on our behalf. And we think that they can get them to do something for us. Please, someone please, and I mean this, in the comments or wherever, make that make sense to me. I mean it. Make that make sense to me. Tell me where I'm missing the point, or where I'm missing the ball, or where I'm off. Tell me. Make that make sense to me, because I am mystified. I am mystified that our people don't seem to see this. The point of my story about what happened on 9/11 is that as more and more white people wake up to the fact that their government has abandoned them, they are going to be more and more ripe for a revolution, and not necessarily a peaceful one. John F. Kennedy said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." And I'm talking about white people, are seeing that they're trying to do peaceful protests, or trying to change things peacefully, is absolutely doing no good. And that's where we are. We can already see it starting to happen now. And more white people are coming out saying that we, talking to us black people, all need to set aside whatever issues we have and all come together as one, because this is obviously a class war. And it is. That's true. It is. It's class warfare upon everybody who's not one of the 1 in 10%. They say that we need to join together and with one voice take back our government. Two problems with that. Number one, the government was never ours, speaking of black people. And two, as we have learned from history, there has not been one time that people of another race or a minority has teamed up with white people to fight for a common cause, and after the common cause is achieved, the white people didn't double cross them. Or as I said in another podcast, when we all fight together and finally win, black people will be jumping around yelling, "We've won, we've won." And the white people who convinced us to get together and fight shoulder to shoulder as one with them will look at black people after the battle is over and say, "What do you mean we?" That is their pattern. Just like the church was packed when they felt they were in distress, once they felt the danger was over, they either found another church where there were people that looked like them, or they stopped going altogether. That is because they are easily moved through fear and distress, especially after having been used to being privileged. And just as a side note, it's funny how they'll deny to their last breath that they do not have privilege, but then they lose their SHIT when that privilege that they claim that they don't have is suddenly unable to be accessed. And so, I keep insisting two things. The first is that you be sure your faith, hope, and trust is in something solid and real, and that you place no hope in this system for any positive outcome for our people. The second is that in the coming months, as the government continues to absolutely ignore the pain of the people and a revolution becomes more and more likely, don't fall for those who speak of revolution and all people benefiting in the end. No, even if something like that were possible or were to happen here, like I said, after the dust settles and we're yelling, "We've won," they'll look at us unironically and unflinchingly and say dryly, What do you mean we? We need to separate from this system. It is the only way our people can have safety, security, and find sanity. Leave this system. Sit this one out. The goal of a casino isn't to have you lose every single time you play the slots. It's to let you have insignificant wins that keep you playing, but never pays you enough to really mean anything, and never will. If you only ever lost, you would leave. The goal is to keep you playing and your energy in the casino, at least until you're completely broke and there's nothing else to be squeezed out of you. Then and only then will they let you leave. As a matter of fact, when you are no longer of any use to the casino, they want you to leave. They'll make you leave. The goal is to keep you playing until you have enriched them even more, but you yourself are all used up. Remember that. Don't wait until your life is almost over and you look back and realize that you've spent your entire life, your time, your energy, your efforts, the best you had to offer, enriching and building up a system that did nothing but bleed you dry. And now you have nothing left for yourself, your family, or your people. Walk away now. Thank you for listening to this Drapetomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC. Yes, that is the head Drapetomaniac in charge. Wishing you peace, blessings, and safety. And until next Friday at this same time, I'll see you on the run.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.